Our next guest is Chris Eger with Guns.com. He's been following the new Secretary of the Interior and the lead ammo ban. How's it going, man?
Good.
Yes, sir. So you wrote about our new Interior Secretary, Ryan. I can never say his last name correctly. Zinke?
I believe it's Zinke.
Zinke? Yeah. I want to talk to his parents. So tell us about that.
Well, he's got an interesting background. He's the first Montanan, to be in the presidential cabinet. He's the first Navy SEAL to be in a presidential cabinet. He's a conservationist in the mold of Teddy Roosevelt. In fact, at his first day in office, when he issued a couple of different secretarial orders, he had a portrait of President Roosevelt on the desk. So that's different.
No, absolutely. I think the Secretary of the Interior is one of those positions that I think a lot of people tend to overlook the importance of, especially when it comes to the responsibility that he's going to have with respect to basically the land that this country owns. And so, with respect to that, he hit the ground running essentially, and basically addressed this lead ammo ban from our state parks, not state parks, from our national parks. Am I correct? And pretty much reversed it.
Yeah, just he openly, that was his actually first day on the job. First thing he did was repeal that order that was left by the outgoing secretary, by the outgoing director of the National Park Service. So that just basically is gone, is scrapped, is done. And what that did was it set a mandate, through all the federal systems to go ahead and try to expand the. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Set a mandate to try to be as lead-free as possible with all fishing tackle and lead or traditional ammo by 2022, and that was done without any sort of consultation with the industry, with conservation partners, different fish and wildlife organizations throughout the states, and he basically just kind of did it by fiat, and that was scrapped after there was a lot of feedback and a lot of pushback over the past month from conservation groups, from gun rights groups, from gun industry trade groups that were really against the way it was done. A lot of people understand that lead is a bad thing. Lead. They got rid of lead paint. They got rid of lead in gasoline. But there's been a big movement over the past several years to concentrate just on lead ammo as a problem for wildlife. Like, for instance, in California, they're the only state that has an outright ban, even on private land moving forward. This year with their turkey season, with the 2017 turkey season in California, you have to have just like bismuth or non-toxic ammunition. You can't have any traditional or lead ammunition that you use.
That doesn't surprise me at all. California would ban exhaling breath because of the carbon monoxide. So it's definitely in line with California's overzealous attempts at virtue signaling. But go ahead. Sorry.
And in California, that it was pushed because of the California condor, endangered species.
Yeah.
But it turns out that actually in one of the studies, a group of condors had contracted lead toxicity due to old lead paint on a abandoned fire tower on state land. So it's not always just lead shot. So on and so forth. There's lead residue from mining. There's lead's a naturally occurring substance, so there's a lot of studies, a lot of research that's been going on this, and some of the first studies were done back as far as 1894.
Yeah.
And the federal government in 1991 had the lead ban for waterfowl and geese, and that's been moving forward, and they're still studying that. There's a lot of studies out there, and that's the whole case that the firearms industry wanted to make clear, was that the science isn't always as sound as what some of the animal rights groups try to portray.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing, was that, the ruling that the last outgoing director issued was done without a lot of consultation, without a lot of input from different partners, especially on the conservation side of things. A lot of the conservation agencies in the states, they were kind of taken aback by the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think I think there will be some people on the other side who look at this and say, "Oh, well, at least how the other side would try to spin this would be, well, you gun owners don't care about wildlife, you don't care about conserving the health and well-being of these animals." But I think the biggest issue, if I understand correctly, is about more or less how it went about passing. Like you said, it was just kind of forced through. There really wasn't much debate or discussion about it. And as you just pointed out within in that last case regarding the condor, it's not always the case that just because one thing seems one way, that's exactly what the problem is. And in order to really figure out what the issue is and to come up with an adequate solution for it, there needs to be some discourse back and forth about how to approach trying to solve an issue without completely infringing on other people. Because as you pointed out, you say, well, what do you mean by infringing? But I mean, the vast majority of our ammo is made with lead. And it's almost a backdoor attempt in many ways to kind of either take a jab at or to try to create some even further limitation with respect to the gun issue in this country. And go ahead.
Oh, exactly. Especially when you keep in mind that the Department of Interior, which the new secretary leads, encompasses something like 20% of the land in the country. Because it's not just it's you say Interior Department, it's like, what does that mean? That's Fish and Wildlife, that's the Bureau of Land Management,
that's a lot of land.
That National Park Service. There's especially in the western states, like California and Wyoming and Montana, that makes up a really big chunk of those states. So that's actually under federal control. And when you say that you can't use lead ammunition for hunting, well, then that opens the door to public shooting ranges that are set up under the Pittman-Robertson Act. You can't use it there. You can't use it, any of the federal lands. If you follow that course.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and those are the things that we need to stay on guard for, and especially now, considering the state, or the political state at the time. I think it's great, but I think it tends to foster a lot of complacency, and when you don't stay on top of things like, for instance, this lead ban, it's easy for them to start sneaking stuff through or getting things passed that they normally wouldn't because we weren't as vigilant or staying on top of and paying attention to these issues. Now, with that being said, there was news out in New Jersey that you wrote about today. Tell us about that.
Oh, well, in New Jersey, you've got Governor Chris Christie. He's been having a back and forth for the past couple of years with state lawmakers, especially when you look at the state legislature. You've got a lot of very serious Democrats who really like, New Jersey's rather strict May issue concealed carry policies. They're one of just 7 states that have May issue, and there's a lot of people that would argue on the gun rights side that it's actually not May issue, it's no issue, because it's almost impossible, especially from some police chiefs, to get any sort of permit. What he's been trying to do is basically expand the just cause definition in that state to include more of a threat-based, with a non-specific threat. What he's done is back last year, and this wasn't just something arbitrary.
Yeah.
After the death there was a woman named Carol Bone.
Very familiar with that case.
And, she was stabbed to death by an ex-boyfriend in her driveway when she couldn't get a firearms permit. It had been out there for months, and she had filed all the paperwork. She'd upped her security. She got a home security system. She'd filed multiple protective orders, requests, all this stuff. And what she just couldn't get was a gun.
Yeah.
Legally, of course. So, she put her faith in that, and it kind of let her down. And a lot of Second Amendment and gun rights advocates have really pushed for, that as kind of like a bellwether, a warning. It's like, look at this. This is kind of messed up. And Governor Christie convened a panel to take a look at how the firearms regulations are in New Jersey. And he did that in 2015. And part of that panel, last year came out with a issue to where he would add serious threats as a new part of the May issue process, to where a police chief could look at that and use a serious threat as a justifiable need, like, for instance, in Ms. Bone's case. Now, state lawmakers weren't very pleased with that. He issued a regulatory guidance through the state police and the Attorney General of New Jersey. But the lawmakers got together and basically repealed that. They blocked that from taking effect last December. Well, it came out again, and it's just a couple of months passed since the last session where they blocked that, and he's trying basically the same thing. And of course, he had a 60-day comment period, so this isn't just like an arbitrary, well, I'm going to do this because I'm the governor. He opened it up for a 60-day public comment period, and at the end of that period, went ahead and tried to put it back into the regulation to allow that. And it's a very small tweak when you look at New Jersey's gun laws as a whole. It doesn't fundamentally change
anything. No, it's still
exactly.
Yeah, it still regulates. It basically regulates my safety or my ability to exercise my Second Amendment right to the kind of whimsical nature of an individual who doesn't live my life or who could care less about my life in a sense of. I don't know. The thing that bothers me the most about the May issue is this idea and concept of all of the threats that I may encounter in my life where I might need a firearm or things that I can calculate beforehand. And that just doesn't make any sense to me. And I know you're not the person responsible for it, but it really it really gets to me on an emotional level because you do have the cases like Carol Owen and she's dead. They don't talk about that though. They'll put up all the other anecdotal stories in the world about everything else, but then when it comes to a woman who actually died because of these policies, they say nothing. They just completely ignore it, and it's disgusting if you ask me. But sorry.
Well, and state lawmakers who are opposed to changing the permitting process that's in place, they always fall back on public safety. They say if we do this, there'll be mass chaos, pandemonium in the streets, people, the Old West, all the stuff you typically hear, from the left and from gun control advocates. But this is coming from lawmakers. So in New Jersey, it's a slightly different, frame of mind than what you have in the rest of the country. It's actually very hard to explain to a lot of people, what it's like to live in a May issue state and try to get a permit. Because there's only so many states that do this. Again, there's just 7, like California, New Jersey, Hawaii, those states.
Absolutely. Well,
so to explain that to somebody from Florida or Texas, and their eyes just glaze over, and they're not really, what do you mean you can't get a permit? You just go and you file, and as long as you have a clean background, boom, or if you talk to somebody from a constitutional carry state like Vermont or Mississippi, to where as long as, you're not a prohibited firearms possessor, you can legally carry a firearm as long as it's in a holster, you're good to go. And it's hard to explain that to somebody from those states that, if you live in New Jersey, that's just simply not going to happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Chris. It was definitely a pleasure, and I would definitely hope that you keep us abreast of everything that's going on at guns.com, and you definitely have a good one.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Take care, man.
All right.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back.